Welcome to Beyond the Ball podcast. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on, ballers? And welcome to another episode of the Beyond the Ball podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Jones, and man, it's pretty dope when you learn new stuff, man. Ballers, what's going on out there? Oh man, I'm excited to come to you all once again with another episode with another phenomenal guest. And without further ado, we're gonna go ahead and get ready to bring this gentleman out. But before we do, I want to encourage you all, wherever you're listening to, wherever you're tuning in from. If you're not on YouTube, make sure you go right here and make sure you click that box to make sure that you subscribe to the podcast. So you get exclusive content and not just what we hear on the podcast, but ultimately additional content regarding everything that you need to succeed beyond your degree. But now enough about that. We're going to go ahead and get to today's guest. Our guest goes by the name of Mr. Marlon Walls, and this gentleman is a podcast co-host of the Monoplizer podcast, as well as he's a rental car fleet owner. Let's get it. In addition to that, one last thing I got to put out there is he also is a real estate investor. Go ahead, ballers. Welcome in Mr. Marlon Walls. Marlon, how you feeling, brother? How you feeling?
Man, I love the production of this entire thing, man, because, you know, I do the podcast myself, so I'm loving just the way that you got the whole setup going, man. Like, this is next level for sure. So, for one, I'm just glad that you invited me on here to be a part of your show, and I'm ready to get started, man. How you feeling?
Yeah, man, I'm feeling good, man. I'm feeling good. But Marlon, man, go ahead, take a second and let the people know a little bit about you. Because, I mean, I know I just hit on the big three, but, man, just go ahead this time. Just take over, man. And I'm kick it to you. Just take a little bit of time, man. Take a little bit of time.
All right. So the problem is that I'm a podcaster myself, so I always think about how we would start the episode. No, we always go into the background story of our guests. So I guess I was leading that same regard. Who I am, like you said, I am a podcast co-host. I'm also rental car fleet owner and real estate investor. But I promise you, it did not start like that by any means. When I go back and look at my story, I think it really starts back when I was in probably when I moved to Houston. I think that was like the pivotal point for my life. So I just to give you a bit of background, I was born in Detroit, Michigan. And around there, we saw all around, you don't really see any opportunity the same way that you see everywhere else. Not to say there is an opportunity, but that's just not what I was exposed to. And so one thing I was always good was like saving money and things like that. Like I always used to save all of my money, and I was just very frugal. And I would say that's one thing that I took away from being a child to adulthood, is that I was always mindful about how much I was saving and how much I was spending. And when I moved to Houston, I met this guy named Alex. That's my podcast co-host. And that was probably like in 7th grade. I meet him, and he also likes money, but he's also very self-motivated, very driven to be the best. And I also had that same mentality. So we both were in football. We both really wanted to like be first in whatever we were doing, whether we were running laps around the track, whether we were playing 2K, whether we were doing just about anything. We wanted to beat each other. We wanted to be the best. And even in school, we were very well educated. So we took all the PAP classes. We ended up going to college. We both like graduated high school, went to college. We both were engineering majors as well. We both graduated in 3.5 years. I was in mechanical engineering. He was in civil engineering. And I can go deeper into that story if you want me to, but my story was that I was a 4.0 student in engineering physics, as well as a student athlete on the football team. And I'm talking about 4.0 cumulative. So all 7 semesters I was there, 4.0 every single semester, engineering physics. And so they made me seem like this larger than life figure, somebody that anybody on the campus or anybody in the community should be looking up to. So they were putting my face on magazines for the alumni. They were putting my face on the so you know how the football stadium has like the press box. My face was on like one side of the press box. Oh. Like they would highlight the athletes that were on the star athletes on the team. I was on the face of there as well. And then my face was all around campus as far as this is the guy. This is who y'all need to look up to and be like. So I'm very a very humble person. I don't ever think I'm very arrogant or anything like that. Nothing really goes to my head. But I mean, at some point, you do start feeling like, hey, I do know a couple things. I mean, so I'm a little smart,
I know
I
a little
guess.
something. I know a little
No, a little
something.
so.
Something.
And so I want to preface what I'm about to say next by saying, at the same time, because I was playing football through from high school and college, I never had the opportunity to do like an internship or work a job like during the summer or something like that. And that's leading all the way through out of college. I never had a true job, so I never had any work experience. So when I first graduated college, that was my first true work experience. So me and Alex both graduated in 7 semesters, and in January of 2018, we started our full time corporate jobs as engineers. And so 2 weeks in, we get this thing called a paycheck, right? And it drops into my direct deposit account on my phone that morning, like Friday morning, and I see what I made. This is a engineering check, so it's pretty sizable. I'm like, ooh, this is finna be nice.
Okay.
I'm pretty hyped for it. So I'm truly excited. I got my first ever paycheck. I go into the office that day, and because, like I said, I was very money minded all the time growing up, as far as like just being conscious of how much money I have. So I wanted to always see what my paycheck looked like in actuality, because all I got was the direct deposit. I want to see what the paycheck looks like. So I walk into the office, I look at the paycheck, and I almost like pee my pants for it. I'm like, yo, hold on, wait. That's this thing called gross pay. So that's one number. The number that's in my checkings account is way less. So now I got to go figure out, and I'm calling my dad. Hey man, somebody like messed up my account or something. Like, so I got a gross pay and I got what's this stuff in my account. It's called net pay. Something happened in between those two numbers. I can't figure out. And so he like, oh man, what you talking about? You could talk about taxes? Yes. I'm like, whatever you talking about. There's Fed, there's state, there's med. Like, what does all this stuff mean? He's like, yeah, man, it's taxes, bro. So I had just this is like my epiphany moment. I'm like, yo, seven semesters, 4.0 student. People telling you that everybody needs to be like you. Everybody believes that you're the smartest person in the world. You know everything, and 2 weeks out of college, you learn how little you really know.
Oh,
And
wow.
that for me was just like the epiphany moment to say I know nothing, and I believe that to this day. I am a student for life. I would never believe I know anything, because I'm always ready to learn more, because I know how much I don't really know, and I know that there's endless potential to grow because of the fact that there's so much information out there. And so fast forwarding a little bit more, just like about a month later, I told Alex, that's my podcast co-host, I told him about the same little taxes story, and he had already read this book called Rich Dad Poor Dad. In that book, he was talking about, yeah, man, the taxes plus a lot of other stuff that we never really learned about growing up in school is taught in this book. And I'm like, man, listen, I'm all ears. I'm a student for life. Let me get that book. 2 days finished it. Mind you,
What? 2 days?
I had not read a book
Oh
since
God.
eighth grade. From eighth grade to age 21, I had not read one book.
Wow.
But that book I finished in 2 days. And after that, we said, okay, we had to make a decision on what we want to do with our life here moving forward. So my thing was that our thing was that we were going to do real estate. And so we started on a real estate path. I can go into detail with that later on. I'll let you answer questions. But we started in real estate. But then fast forward a year, we realized that we were talking about just different financial literacy type of terminology, type of topics all the time. Like we're talking about real estate, talking about how to save money, how to invest money. All these conversations me and my podcast co-hosts were having. But at the same time, we thought about people that were around us growing up. They never had the opportunity to be exposed to these things. They never read Rich Dad Poor Dad. They never got to do a podcast and talk about. No, we didn't get to the podcast yet, but that's what we're leading up to. They never had the opportunity to like be exposed to things like buying a house, like learning what taxes were, like credit, all these type of things. We weren't afforded those opportunities growing up because we just didn't have the information in previous generations. And so Alex came up with the idea we should start a podcast, record our conversations that we're currently having, and then put it out there to where other people can see what we're talking about and be inspired to do the same thing.
Man,
I'll
hold
let you
on.
answer some questions from there. I'm gonna stop right quick.
Hold on, hold on, hold on, Marlon. Hold the phone, man. Wait a minute. So your first introduction or your first awakening to I guess more so the financial conversation that came by way of the taxes, and then is that the same way that your co-host came into that conversation as well, or what did that look like?
So his story is a little bit different because he was actually always more entrepreneurial than I ever was. And back in, I think, our junior year of college, he has said that he wanted to start his own engineering firm because he had worked an internship himself. He didn't play football in college, so he actually got a chance to work an internship. And his story was that he went into that internship. He was excited at first, but then he looked to his left and to his right, saw an old dude about age 50, saw another dude over here about age 47, like,
Mm,
I know I'm here at age 20, but why are y'all still here? And he's
mm,
like, so this is obviously like a plateau. This is where you go to live the rest of your life. And he's never been somebody who wants to stay in the same place and do the same thing repetitively. That's not what he does. And so he said, this can't be the end all be all for me. And so that's why he read Rich Dad Poor Dad first. And then I came along a little bit after. And he's like, yeah, we can start this journey together because like I said, we were already always pushing each other in junior high and high school. So it only made sense that we can continue to push each other into real life.
wow. So you said from eighth grade to you being 21, you didn't read a book. But you being a college, because you go through the process, especially if you're a 4.0 student in college, then I'm gonna assume that you're a 4.0 student in high school as well. Is that correct?
I was so 4.0 was for one never the intention. It just so happened that the first semester I got a 4.0, and I would say I discovered one of my true gifts was just consistency. Like whatever I
Mm.
really put my mind to, I'm gonna stick to it longer than anybody else ever will. And that's just one of my examples of where I showed consistency over anybody else because I did it for one semester. And I'm like, well, I mean, I'm just going to class and studying, studying for tests, turning in my work. That's how I looked at it. And I was like,
Mm.
I'm not going to stop doing that. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. And I wasn't necessarily a 4.0 student in college, no, in high school, but I was on a 6.0 scale because of the pre-AP classes. So I actually think I had like a 4.2 out of a 6.0 scale.
Oh God. Hold on. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. So just for the people out there, well, no, no, we're gonna go here with it. We're gonna go here with it. So from you being a student and student athlete to like you now, like that consistency, can you give us like a tangible example, or can you give us some like tangible strategy or tip that somebody listening, if they're struggling with consistency and they're struggling with just ultimately like focus, what's something tangible that they can begin to do to where they can begin to generate a level of consistency, because you've mastered it, Marlon. So talk to me.
My go-to for that type of question is always start off with your goal in mind. So for me, I have different examples of why I was so consistent in different areas. But for school, I always just wanted to do well. And honestly, I think foundationally, before I even got to college, I did always want to be well, I guess please my parents, and as far as like making them proud of me. So I think that I can really owe some credit to that as far as why I was doing well in school because I love just because they were very supportive. So I think that's one reason why I'm very family oriented and I really cherish the like free time. Like I cherish time freedom so much. So matter of fact, that's a perfect segue. That is my goal for everything that I'm doing is time freedom because I
Mm,
cherish that. They used to come to every game. I'm talking about from junior high, high school, college. They may have missed 2 games in all of
wow.
those years, and I'm talking about both of them were there together. And that's how supportive they were. Even my grandmother, she was always there as well. Not at every game
Mm,
because she lived in Detroit, but that's a little bit different. So as long as they were, I'm talking about they traveled too, like my parents did. They went to where we played. We played in Iowa. They drove out there, and they just there was nowhere that they wouldn't go to see me play. And so I really
mm.
cherish that. So I think me in school really, well, me doing well in school had something to do with that. But I think at the end of the day, the answer to that is you have to start with a goal in mind. And once you have that goal or that target, that's what you have to continuously think about every day. I think it's very good to write it down too. If you write it down and see it on your wall, see it on your phone, wherever you write it down at, you need to be able to see it every day, because that'll remind you, no matter how you actually feel at that on that current day, this is your goal. And if that goal is strong enough, you're always going to work towards it. And the days where you don't feel like doing it, if that goal has to just be that strong, it has to be like, I don't care how I feel today, I'm doing it because I know it needs to be done for me to achieve my goal. And without that goal, you usually don't maintain that level of consistency.
That's good, Marlon. So start with the goal in mind. Put the goal in your face, right? You got to see it every time, every time, wherever you. And I really like how you said, despite how you feel other days, because one thing that I've realized that there'll be some times where I'm on the high horse. I'm excited. You know, I might have booked this guest for this interview. You know how it goes,
Oh
and
yeah.
you get really excited, and then you forget how you felt when you were in that funk. And then when you lose sight of how you felt in that funk, now you're not as driven as you were down that day. So it's just one of those things that helps it keep it in the forefront of your mind. So I really like how you hit on that, because I think I think that's something that we need to remember. Like, we need to remember when we took an L. We need to remember when, you know, we got rejected. We need to remember.
Mm-hmm. And I want to just comment on the one word to summarize that is discipline. And I think I've had a great deal of that. And I really think that foundationally may come from playing a sport, playing football, playing basketball, playing anything. So I'm talking about from practice to the games, like all of that takes a level of discipline. You have to show up to practice every day. I don't care how you feel in the morning, whether you feel like sleeping in to 10 a.m., whether you feel like sleeping in the whole day. You If practice is at 7 a.m., you better have your butt there at 7 a.m. if you want to play that game. And as simple as that. We had in football, we had summer camp, fall camp. We came back after 2 weeks during the winter. Sometimes we played into the winter because we were in the playoffs. It's just a daily routine. Like, you have to, this is something that has to be done. I don't care how you feel. If you can, if you can disregard how you feel and do what needs to be done anyway, you will achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve, and it's just inevitable.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's good. And since you took it back to football, I'm gonna go back because I wanted to ask this question, but I thought we were gonna shift the conversation. But I'm glad you went back to football. But I gotta ask you, what was the pressure like? Because you said, you know, your face is plastered everywhere. And as you were saying, I just started thinking about back to like the Heisman Trophy days when they would like put guys on the side of buildings and stuff like that. But you know, being at your university, and where'd you go to school?
Oh yeah, I didn't even say that. Stephen F. Austin State University. It's in East Texas.
Oh yeah, I was at UT Tyler. That's what's up. That's
Okay,
what's
yeah,
up.
you weren't even that
Okay.
far.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But
Nice.
but in that atmosphere and in that culture, you know, you being put on the side of stuff, like you said, wherever they had the donors and stuff like that, you were front of mind. They're like, this is the example. Strive to be like the example. Like how, like what was it like? What was that pressure like? Just to be consistent doing what you're doing, but even knowing that meant so many eyes are on you.
I think I truly never let it get to me too much. I think I had a lot of, not even a lot, but the voices that I cared about were always in my ear. So my dad, he just says, like, live in the moment, get everything you can while you can, because there will come a day where this is all going to end, and just make sure that you had no regrets, that you left everything that you had, and just understand that it's just a small moment in time, and so just cherish it while you have it, and it's not won't always be there. I think I learned to appreciate those type of words of encouragement or words of advice a lot more after I graduated, and I really understand how everything comes into your life for a season, and it's just about understanding that take what you can during this season in your life, and then help it or allow it to propel you to the next season.
So what season of your life would you say you're in right now?
Man, I am in an awakening season. And
Mm.
like, so you being in the morning meetup, you know exactly what who I'm talking about. But I look at my life as a series of mentors that I've had at different stages, and I've had a lot more of recent than I have in like before college or before high school. But now I see myself now as like different mentors will get me to different levels. And so for the morning meetup, we have David Shands. I consider that like my mentor from afar, because he has a lot of, for one, core values beyond just the entrepreneurship, just how he values um, his relationship with God, stuff like that. How he values, like, he doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, doesn't cuss. All that stuff that I identify with, because I'm the exact same way. And
Mm.
so a lot of those values beyond just entrepreneurship, but in entrepreneurship, just that, like the content creation bootcamp that he put on, that for me was life changing. I can't even express that enough. I say that everywhere I go because that truly brought me out of the shell that I was in before. And when I say a shell, people looked at me both in high school and college, as far as on the football team, as the leader that leads by example. Because I never really used to speak. I was very non-vocal when it came to um, leading the team. Like I would be the person that they say be like him, but I'm not gonna necessarily be the one that says follow me. I would lead, but I would just be the one that's doing my thing, and somebody else would point me out. Now I'm very vocal about what I believe in. So when it comes, so now my niche and my focus is around that financial literacy aspect because that's what we teach on Money Monoplizers. That's what we teach on our podcast platform. And so all of my content, all of my anything that I say on social media is going to be geared towards that because that's the voice that I want to have portrayed for myself. I know that people may see me as an engineer. People may see me as a football player. People may see me as a brother, as a son. But at the end of the day, this is where I want to be known for. And I'm very unapologetic about it now as opposed to how I was, say, 5 months ago. And it's just been a evolution and a growth process. And I think I really owe a lot of that uh, to being in the morning meetup to David Shands. And so that's really my story when it comes to that. So that's the season of my life I'm in right now. Is that evolving in that evolution season.
Man, yeah, I like that. I like that. Awakening, man, awakening. And I think it's just interesting because typically, when we hear the phrase woke, that can mean something totally different. But just now in this space where we're in, and as you all heard Marlon talk about the morning meetup, it's basically a morning accountability group, but it's so much more than that. It's so much more than that. But Marlon, the reason I really want to bring that to the forefront is because I mean, you've heard it said, and I've heard it said that if you want to hide something from a certain individual, then you put it in a book. Okay, you put it in a book because books can be overwhelming. When you look at a book and you see a book, and we'll just use Rich Dad Poor Dad for example. Rich Dad Poor Dad, the book is thick. Okay, it looks like it has the amount of pages that a textbook has in it, but at the same time, if you knew that when you were about to read a book that somebody else is going to read the book with you, right? If you knew that when you're about to read a book and you knew if you didn't read chapter 1 and 2 like we were supposed to last night, then you can't have anything to share on a call and you're going to feel left out. And the reason I just want to reason I want to bring that out is because what you said about mentors and then also just what you said about being in a season of awakening. I think that so often, if we're not careful, trying to do life alone is really dangerous. It's hazardous to our health. It's hazardous to our health, Marlon. Talk to me, Marlon. Talk to
Man,
me.
I got so many ideas running through my brain. I'm gonna
Go,
forget
go
a
ahead.
whole
Let,
bunch.
let, let, let them flow. Let them flow.
No, man, because that community is life changing, and for that exact reason, because we just started the reading of chapter a day this year. So, like in January, Dave just had this idea that says we need to become readers because that's what the wealthy do. Readers are the wealthy are the ones who continuously educate themselves. They are the students for life that I was talking about earlier. It's the people that are not wealthy that feel like they know everything before they even begin. And that's where I really, because I look back in my hometown in Detroit, not necessarily pointing them out saying that they don't know anything, but a lot of people in that community only know Detroit. They don't even want to go see Ohio or Wisconsin. They don't want to get out of their immediate circle. Like it's just a level of comfort that people have that prevent them from being able to grow. Like once they know what they know, they don't even want to try nothing else because they don't want to be exposed to anything else. And I think that exposure is everything. So with that morning meetup community, you're exposing yourself to things that you don't normally see when you're living alone, doing everything on your own, just being surrounded by yourself. Like somebody can bring out a whole new perspective that you never even thought about before. And speaking of which, I keep on highlighting this for people because it's so powerful. I see this as much more than what other people may see it as. The dude, him 500, Marcus Barney, dude just bought a private jet. I'm like, so some people see a private jet as something that's not even obtainable. They just see I don't know, like a Chevy Corvette or a Tesla as the cream of the crop, the best you can ever do in life.
Mm-hmm.
And this dude just took it a whole step up as far as what we can truly obtain for ourselves. When you are surrounding yourself with people who think like this and do things like this, that pretty much removes any negative self-talk that you have to yourself previously, saying that I can't achieve something, because you see it being done in your own community. The problem is that in those communities, you don't their peers are not doing what they well no are not doing these type of this level of work or this
Mm-hmm.
level of achievement. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why a lot of times the people that we look up to are the athletes, are the rappers, are the drug dealers, because that's all we see. But when you expand beyond that immediate circle, you start seeing so much more. And that's why I think the power of exposure is so huge. So in the morning meetup, I don't know if I'll ever leave out of there, because it's constant
Mm-hmm.
exposure to a whole new way of thinking. And as Dave's network grows, our network grows as well. Because I've had 3 guests from his podcast on my podcast, because
Mm.
and that's just the power of connections. I always lead
Mm-hmm.
with, I saw you on what's it called, the Social Proof podcast, and I love what you were doing. Um, excuse me. I would love to have you on mine as well. And 3 times out of 3, that has worked for me.
Wow.
So that is just the power of connections. Like, I'm being exposed to all new people, and I'm able to bring those into my network, and we can. It's just there's endless possibilities with that, because, like I said, we're real estate investors as well, and so we could utilize that network because of the larger cash reserves. They can be our private investors. Like, it's just endless
Mm.
connections and possibilities
Wow.
when you expand outside of your circle.
Wow. Wow. Man, I love it. I love it. Marlon, so we talking about exposure. And I was doing some research just off to the side just now because I knew the stat, but I couldn't think of the actual number. But in 2017, okay, so the numbers might have increased since, but in 2017, it said 60% of minorities do not listen to podcasts. 60% in 2017. We'll be generous, and I'll just subtract 15%, and I'll just say 45% of minorities don't listen to podcasts. So since we're talking about exposure, Marlon, talk a little bit about what you cover on your podcast, and just give us just like a sneak peek, because people need to be exposed. People need to be exposed to the platform. So talk about the money monopolizers and how that even came about.
Yeah, for sure. I think I commented on it a little bit before as far as how Money Monopolizers came about. But just to reiterate, it was at a time where me and my podcast co-host, we were talking about real estate constantly. We would be on the phone 3 to 4 times a week and just talking about the real estate deal we were trying to get into, the house hacks we were trying to get into, talking about credit, talking about simple things that you'd never even talk about in school or growing up in your household. And so thinking about that, well, actually, his sister had overheard us talking a few times, and she was like, "Do y'all talk about this stuff all the time? Why don't y'all do like a podcast or something?" And he was like, "That is a great idea." And then he brought it back to me and said, "Hey, we have these conversations almost every day, and literally the only thing we'd be doing differently is putting a camera in front of us while we talked about it, and we can call it a podcast. And now we can be helping out everybody that's in our circle, and people all across the world that were not exposed to these type of conversations growing up." And so the podcast came about. We started off mainly real estate. That's all we really knew at the time. Like, that was all we had been exposed to. And so as the podcast progressed, we started bringing on guests, because we started reaching out to more people saying, "Hey, would you mind being a part of the podcast?" I think we started off with people who have paid down debt. And that led to a couple people that were in businesses, such as rental cars, such as vending machines. We've had on somebody who did a couple who did a cleaning business. We had all sorts of people that have built all sorts of businesses. And the fact of the matter is, there are so many things out there that you just don't even know about, because you're not exposed to it. So now we're bringing on these people. We're looking for people who have built different businesses, or are in different entrepreneurship ventures, because that's exposing our audience to something brand new each and every week. And so they can pick anything and say, "I'm going to do snow cones." We have somebody who sold snow cones and was making 400,000 in a year off selling snow cones. This is the power of networking, the power of being exposed to different things. Now you know new possibilities in life based on what you're exposed to. So that's how the podcast has grown to what it is today. And really, what we talk about at the end of the day is financial literacy, and how to control your time, how to control your finances, take control of your financial destiny and build generational wealth for yourself.
Somebody moving 400K, moving cool cups. Man, I'm not mad at them. Goodness. Oh, wow. Wow. I mean, I really love just the aspect of exposure because just like you were talking about with the gentleman, aka him 500, aka Marcus Barney, and with him purchasing the jet, Marlon, when I saw that on Instagram, I was like, wow, I kind of want a jet too.
No, matter of fact, in the morning meetup, David talks about how, because he's in that in a little text message group with them, like the whole entrepreneurship group in Atlanta.
Okay.
I know that David said Neo has said after Marcus had got the jet, I'm getting one next. And Neo, he don't play. Neo, when he says something, he doing it. Like that's a legit thing. So they finna make that a thing. That's not even finna be an anomaly anymore. This is showing you the power of the power of community, the power of your network, the power of exposure. Once you are exposed to something, it's going to become commonplace at some point because everybody's going to believe that they can do it, and that's how generations are going to be changed forever.
So we're talking exposure, we're talking things changing. When did your mindset shift? Because because what you're sharing, and just since I've known you, I've seen your elevation and your growth. But when did the mindset shift happen for you to even dive into what you're doing now? Because you got the podcast going, like you said earlier, you got the rental car fleet, which you haven't dove into. We're gonna get into that, and you got the Money Monoplizers podcast. Because this isn't, doing a podcast, for one, is not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. Okay. You know that. I'm telling people out there, y'all might not know. We show up every week. Okay. And sometimes it's heavy. Okay. So you got all that going, but talk about the mindset shift. When did Marlon Walls tap in and say, okay, it's go time?
Yeah, so I just thought about it. One thing I didn't really talk about was I did grad school shortly after I started my full-time job. So 6 months in, so this is July of 2018. I only worked at that full-time job for 6 months. And within that 6 months, I was evolving completely. Like I think I read 8 or 9 books in that 6 months. My PS4 got moved got kicked to the curb. I barely I probably listened to 200 episodes of podcasts within that 6 months. I just went into a full education and learning mode. And that's when I started. It's not even an overnight thing. It just was a gradual. I'm learning more. I'm understanding a whole new way of life that I never was exposed to before. And I just need to educate myself, educate. And by the time I went to Purdue, I think I said I went to Purdue as for my graduate school. By the time I got there,
Lord, Purdue ain't nothing to put your nose up at. Serious business over there.
I've been blessed for my entire story. I would not even say that I haven't, because it's been a straight up blessing for every stage of my life, and I don't take anything for granted. But I know for a fact, if I had the mindset that I did by the time I went to Purdue, if I had that before I even went to work at that full-time job, I would probably never would have went to grad school. And that's purely because I was being exposed to too much new information that meant that I did not necessarily need a graduate level degree in order to do what I wanted to do, which was educate people in the financial space and build real estate, build my financial freedom and my generational wealth through real estate. And so it was really gradual. So let's say Money Monoplizers didn't come into after real estate. Real estate started in June of 2018. So 1 month before, or literally like 15 days before I moved out to Purdue, I purchased a house out there. And that's because me and Alex decided we're about to start our real estate journey. And one thing that they talk about in real estate all the time is this term called house hacking. I think I mentioned it earlier. And house hacking is where it's like literally the game changer when it comes to saving money and starting your journey to financial freedom. House hacking is where you buy a single family or a small multifamily house, which is a duplex, triplex, or quadplex. You live in one bedroom if it's a single family, or you live in one unit if it's a small multifamily. And then you rent out the remaining bedrooms or remaining units. And that rent covers your mortgage.
Wow.
And so imagine you live off of 33 to 50% of your monthly expenses is just tied up in the housing. Imagine saving that much money per month. And that's what I was able to do by buying that house and renting it out, as opposed to going just to rent an apartment for those 2 years that I was at Purdue. And so that's where the real estate journey started.
Wow.
A year later, like I said, I told the story already about how we started the podcast. I was still in school at the time. I was in school for a whole year for the first 30 to 40 episodes of the podcast. I was at Purdue. Like, I was talking about how I couldn't wait to be done, because we were being exposed to so many new people. The people that we met on the podcast, like I said, they were doing rental cars, they were doing vending machines, they was doing snow cones, and I'm like, yo, there's so many possibilities. The moment that I set foot off this campus, I'm diving into something.
Wow.
And I'm gonna figure out what it's gonna be. As soon as, I think, August of 2020, so August of last year, I was just looking at cars one day on, I think, like Auto Trader or Cars.com or something. And I was telling my dad had been a part of this process too. Like, he'd been listening in to the conversations that me and Alex would always have. And he overheard the rental cars one day. He's like, man, we can do that. We can definitely do that. I like that. We can do that. And so he hears me talk. So that day in August, I'm like, I'm going to give me a car day. He's like, hey, I want to do it with you. I want to join in the journey. I said, man, let's get it. Got that first rental car in August. I can't remember the day, but it was like mid-August. It was rented out probably like a week or two later. And we didn't really dive deep into it until this year. So in January, we bought another one. February, we bought another one. March, we bought 2 in one day. April, we bought a second tier. So all of those, the first 4 were all Nissan Sentras. Same car, just, I think we had a 2016, then 2 2019s, and a 2018. Then we bought a Kia Forte, and then in last month in April, we moved up to the second tier, and that's because we were exposed to new information. So second tier is going to be like the $20,000 plus of vehicles, and that's where we're at now. And we're about to start scaling to tier 3, tier 4, and we're about to just take over in that space.
How does one get into the rental car space? Like, you were YouTubing some videos, you were reading some books. Like, what does that look like? Because I mean, you can find a lot of information on YouTube, but at the end of the day, finding the information you find on YouTube, it's not the whole puzzle, right? So how does one get started with a rental car fleet?
I think first you need to understand the mindset of a entrepreneur, or a mindset of an investor, mindset of somebody who is a student. That mindset is, I will invest whatever it takes for education, because once I learn how to do it, I know it for life. I would never not know how to run a rental car business. Never in my life will I not know how to do it. So the way I was first exposed to it was because of the podcast. We brought on this guy by the name of Brian Robinson, who has a course on rental cars. I know for a fact it's less than $200. That is a measly investment. I'm telling you, the rental car business, I'll just give you the big numbers, because this is the potential. We bought on, so episode 45 was with Brian Robinson. His course, I highly recommend it. It's actually in the link in my bio if you want to go check it out. We also had Pushman Mitch on the podcast on episode 79. He gave his story. He has cash flowed $120,000 every month. Month.
Oh God.
Month. From the rental car business. This is because he has 150 rental cars in his fleet. He has a whole team of people.
Oh God.
That work with him in order to make the business work. This is the possibilities that you see when you are doing a podcast, when you are exposed to the right people on Instagram and not watching foolishness. You are learning and educating yourself through whatever means. Pushman Mitch also has a course. There's another guy what's it called? Another guy in Atlanta that also does rental cars named CEO Matty J. He has a rental car course. Those 3, if you tap into all 3 of those people, you are guaranteed to know about the rental car space well enough to get started. You're going to have to learn some things, learn along the way. Nothing like when you learn to ride a bike, you have to fall a couple times, and it's okay. Because at the end of the day, your worst case scenario is go back to your full-time job to keep working for another 40 years.
Oh God! Oh, run that back, Marlon. Run that. That was so that was so disrespectful. You got to run that back one more time. That was so disrespectful.
We are big advocates of that because I always think about what is my worst case scenario. And in my current state, I'm 24 years old. Actually, will be 25 next week. So my current state, from 25, most people retire at around age 65. If I fall flat on my face, if I lose every last dime that I have to my name, for one, I still have knowledge that can't take that away from me. So I can go start the rental car business over again because I have the knowledge. Two, I have the degree already. I can go apply for another job. There's no issue with that and just start over. Three, this is not for everybody. It was for me. I don't have any kids. So I'm depending on, so only me is dependent on me right now. I can fall flat on my face today, and at the worst case scenario, I go back and get a job and do what everybody else is already doing. Why not take the risk?
Wow. Well, so Mark, how many degrees do you have? You have the bachelor's and you got the master's?
Yep. So I have a bachelor's in engineering physics and a master's in mechanical engineering.
Knowing what you know now, if you could go back, would you still do it all again? Knowing what you know now, because I have to ask, because now with this, with the time we're living in and how education is, I say education now is bigger than it's ever been, but I'm not talking about traditional education. I'm talking about what you hit on, talking about courses, talking about people everywhere showing you how to make six figures from YouTube, from Facebook, from rental cars, from snow cones, whatever it might be. If you knew what you knew going back, would you do it all over again?
That's a question I have not had to answer yet because so for me, I probably wouldn't for myself because of the fact that entire story shaped who I am and the passion that I have. So that is the reason that I probably wouldn't go back for myself. But if I had to advise anybody else, I would say that there's endless possibilities outside of going to school, going to college. But I would say before you just say, oh, let's not go to school, identify your goal. If your goal is financial freedom or time freedom, then school may not be the route because that's going to lead you to the job. But they don't teach entrepreneurship at the level. Well, for one, you don't need an entrepreneurship degree to become an entrepreneur. You don't need a business degree to become a business owner.
Ooh, say that one more time for the people in the back. Say it one more time.
You do not need a business degree to become a business owner. You do not need an entrepreneurship degree to become an entrepreneur. I've never had to show my degree to anybody, to any person to start their rental car business. Never had to show a degree to anybody to get into real estate. So that's not a requirement. That's an excuse that people use to go. But like I said, identify what your goal is before anything else. I wish I could talk to myself as a high schooler and tell myself it's important to understand where you want to go to. Like, what is your end goal? What do you want to do after college? Forget during college, after, because that will help you dictate what school is right for you. If you truly want to go to school, what do you want to go to school for? Is it mechanical engineering? Then why would you go to school for engineering physics? That's a question I would ask myself. But at the time, I just wasn't thinking on that level back then. And I think it also has to do something with exposure. I really can't even give you the solution for this. But at age 17, 18, I didn't even know, well, the position that I work in today, I didn't even know about that position that even existed back in junior and senior year in high school. I didn't learn about that type of work until junior year of college. So the first 2 years of college, I still don't truly know exactly what I'm going to do full time. I just had ideas based on what I like to do. I knew as a student, I liked math and science. Those are my 2 favorite subjects in high school and before that. And then I also knew I liked working with my hands. And so that's kind of helped me narrow down my choices to mechanical engineer. If you ask me what a mechanical engineer does, I have no clue. I just know I just know it's math and science and working with my hands. And that's just me being fully transparent. I truly don't know. I have not been exposed to it. I don't even blame myself for not knowing. I did nothing to learn. I did nothing. I wasn't exposed to anything about it. And that's one thing that exposure brings to you. Because I think in my junior year of college, we had a course called Engineering Capstone, where we had to create a prototype of a product. And when you prototype different products, you do what's called CAD modeling. And that CAD modeling is where you pretty much do a 3D mock-up or 3D image of what you want to make and like what you want to like fabricate and make, and then you do what's called 3D printing. You take that model and put it to a 3D printer, and it actually makes it from the ground up. When I saw that, this is my junior year of college. When I saw that, I said, now I found something that I actually like to do.
Wow.
And it took me into junior year of college to figure that out. If I hadn't saw that back then, I don't know what I would be doing, because I would just do a lot of odd jobs until I figured out what I like to do. And that's the case for a lot of people. People don't go to school and having it figured out. People go to school just because that's the next thing to do. So if you don't have a true plan or purpose, figure out what you like to do before anything else.
Mm. 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 Man, golly. Golly. So what is it that you do now, Marlon? What is it that you do now? Just so we're all on the same page. And so because we know you got your co-host of, you know, the world famous Money Monoplizers podcast, you know what I'm saying? You got the rental car fleet, which is increasing in car by the day. Okay. We know that you have the real estate investing going on. You're a real estate investor, which is a lot of things already on your plate.
And but what the 9 to 5,
and you still have the 9 to 5. So what do you do at this 9 to 5 that's keeping you here when you have all this other stuff going on, especially like you said before, if the goal is to have the financial freedom and the personal freedom?
So right now we're building up to the financial freedom. I would say my main thing right now is the rental cars, because that's like the business. The business is what brings in the major cash flow. The business creates the freedom. And so right now, like I said, we started in August of last year. We are less than 10 months start since we started. And so we're building that foundation up. It's growing by the day, but it's still growing. We're still learning each and every day. And we're still trying to build the processes and systems in place to where we know it's going to be sustainable. And so as the cash flow builds, the freedom builds. And once we reach a certain level of freedom through the cash flow, then we can have the comfort of saying, all right, I have enough to where I can live off of from the business, and I can leave my 9 to 5. But right now, I'm more so focused on building my cash reserves from the 9 to 5 itself. And that's going to allow me to continue house hacking, because one thing about going to banks, as far as like for your own personal residence, it's a very, very large, a very tall task to walk up into a bank and say, I'm an entrepreneur, give me a loan. They don't like loaning to people like that. And so right now I'm in the process of trying to buy another house hack. I've actually been in that process ever since I got back here in last July. It's a whole nother story in itself. We've talked about on the podcast several times. But I'm working on buying a house hack at the moment, to do it all over again. And that'll be another rental property here. My goal is to get 2 more. So one this year, one next year. And then I will be able to buy my house that I truly want afterwards, because those house hacks, I'm not going to sell them. I'll live in one unit. Let's say I get a triplex, live in one unit, rent out the other 2. And then after a year, you are eligible to move out and go buy another house. So I will move out into another triplex, but I'm going to keep that first triplex, rent out that last bedroom, and let that all be cash flow, because it's already been paying for itself with the first 2 units. The last unit is cash flow. Now to take that money from that cash flow that goes into reserves right now. And I'm also also have another unit, the other triplex, where I'm living in that one for a year. After those, I would move out of that one too and move into my dream house. I have 2 units, 2 triplexes that are cash flowing me amount of dollars per month. And guess what? That money gets to go towards the dream house. The dream house doesn't even have to get paid for by me now.
Oh,
paying for itself, it's being paid for by the tenants in the 2 triplexes.
Oh,
so I never pay for housing again.
Oh, say that one more time, Marlon, just to make me feel good. Say it one more time.
Never have to pay for housing, because you have 2 triplexes that are both cash flowing you enough to be able to cover your main house or your personal dream house. Or you can use the business money from the rental cars. They're going to be cash flowing like crazy too. So you just have passive streams of income coming in consistently that's paying for your lifestyle. And that is the essence of financial freedom. You build up enough cash flow in different ventures, different passive ventures, such as real estate, or build a business that doesn't necessarily require a whole bunch of your time, such as rental cars. And that business, because my end goal is time freedom. So time freedom means I need to have my finances covered for the entire month. whether it's my car note, whether it's my house note, whether it's bills to other bills to pay, whether it's groceries. I want all that to be covered by cash flow. And in order
Mm,
to do that, I need to build some type of business or some type of investment and put that in place to cash flow me per month. And
mm.
if I have rental units and if I have a rental car business, all that's bringing in residual income that I can use to pay for my lifestyle.
Good. Nick. You keep saying rental car. You keep talking about this. I mean, I've wanted to dabble into it. How difficult? And I know this is kind of like a loaded question, but like on a scale of 1 to 10, right? From not knowing anything about the rental car space to then actually running the business, like how? Well, not from not knowing anything, but we don't know anything. How
Mm-hmm.
difficult would you say if this was going to be somebody's first business from a 1 to 10, and what knowing what you know? How difficult would you say is it to run a rental car business?
I would say the knowing part is not the difficult piece. Like you, because information is readily available. You can check. I have two different links. I have Pushman Mitch and I have what's it called? Brian Robinson's links both in my bio. If you watch both of those, you're guaranteed to know enough information to get started and run it profitably. Profitably.
Mm.
The difference is that you need to learn how to truly be an entrepreneur. So
Oh,
you're not renting out vehicles. At least not for my business. I'm not renting out vehicles. I'm renting out an experience to our guests. And so
mm.
that experience entails great customer service. That experience entails great processes and systems. That experience entails being willing to solve their problems whenever they arise and solving them swiftly. If somebody locked the key in their car, you're ready to go help them out immediately. You're able to handle whatever problems that they have and make them your problems and make sure you solve them with a sense of urgency. That's
Wow.
what a true entrepreneur does in any business. You're not giving them the product, you're giving them the experience. And that's the difference between somebody who is just starting that doesn't know about entrepreneurship or the entrepreneur mindset versus somebody who is starting that does understand that. And that's where the disconnect will lie. So I think the true first step beyond learning about the rental car business is learning about who you are, learning about just having a lot of going through a level of personal development and
Mm.
understanding the mindset that you need in order to truly make it profitable for you.
Mm.
Because there's going to be a lot of people that jump into the rental car business. That doesn't mean everybody's going to achieve the same level of success.
Mm. Man, that separates the lions from the gazelles.
That's it, man.
Oh man. So we're gonna get ready to dive into the 2 minute drill, but before we do, and I'm gonna explain what that is in a second. Before we do, you talked earlier about mentors, and you talked earlier about like coaches and accountability. If you had the opportunity to sit down with 3 people, alive or dead, you get to have a dinner with them. That they're all at the same table. You can determine if it's going to be vegan options or non-vegan options. You know what I'm saying? That's on you. You can put together the menu, but who would those 3 people be for you, Mr. Marlon Walls?
That's a question I've never been asked before, so I got to really think about it. I know for a fact David's going to be at the table just because that's the current mentor in my life. My previous mentor is
Hold
going to
on, wait,
probably.
wait, wait, hold on, wait. You said that you have to be clear. Everybody don't know who David is on first name basis.
Okay,
You just
I
gotta be
said
clear,
David. I
man.
didn't say the last. David Shands is going to be number one. He's going to have to be in the conversation. And I'll probably take his mentor, Jim Rohn. He's going to probably be number two because
Mm.
I I love understanding that there's levels to everything, and I love one concept that David has said, and I carry with me to this day. He says, "I never want to be at the very top as far as mentors to mentees. I always want to be in the middle. I want to have a
Mm.
mentor, and I also want to have mentees that I'm teaching. Never just be at the top. I want to be the top dog where everybody looks up to. I can't grow up here. I grow when somebody's up here. And so you need to have somebody that's above that you look up to, as well as people who look up to you to continue to grow and to continue to have more to give back to your people that you're coaching or that you're mentoring. And so I would take his mentor, Jim Rohn. And then my mentor I had before David was Steve Harvey. And I liked him too because that's where I got a lot of personal development, because of what I loved about him was how he talked to people. Like if you watch him on like his cuts after the show, like not like after Family Feud, or like in between segments of Family Feud, or in between segments of his talk show that he had, he would always give like words of advice. He would always talk to people. He would always communicate. And one thing I liked about his story is what I had for myself. He had a severe stuttering problem when he was growing up. And I'm talking about he couldn't talk outside of his house, and people will always antagonize him for it, well, just like patronize him for it and stuff like that. And it will, I think it was a gradual process, but he learned how to cope with it, as I have as well. I don't know if people even noticed listening to this conversation, but I had the same exact problem. So I resonated with his story a whole lot. And then one story that I never forget that he tells is that he always had big dreams. And that's where I got the slogan, like dream big, from. I say that all the time as well. He talked about dreaming big and don't let anybody kill your dreams. And so he had a story of when he was in fifth grade, I forgot, it's like in middle school, and they had a class assignment where they had to write down what they wanted to be when they grew up. And so just the whole class turned in their papers to the front, and the teacher read off every person's paper what they wanted to be. Some people were saying doctors, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be a dentist, I want to be an engineer. And she did not read Steve's. She saved his for last. So he's all excited, like, oh man, teacher finna call me out. She impressed with mine. My answer was the best. And he wrote that he wanted to be on TV. And so she saved his for last and said, Steve, come read yours come to the front of the class and read yours. And he goes to the front of the class and says, well, she asks, what do you want to be? What does your paper say? He says, I want to be on TV. And then he's like, but he's proud when he says it, like, yeah, mine's the best answer. Teacher threw a big wrench in his plans and said, why'd you write that? And then he's sitting there with a blank face, and he still has a stuttering problem. So he's like, I don't know. Like, what's the problem? Then she was like, who do you know that is on TV? Does anybody in this neighborhood, do you know anybody in this neighborhood that's been on TV? Do you know anybody in your family that's been on TV? Do you know anybody in this state that's been on TV? And he's just sitting there speechless because he stutters so much he can't even speak right now. And she's like, look at you. You over here stuttering. You can't even talk. Why do you think you're going to be on TV?
Oh, no.
And that, so he takes it home that day and talks to his mom. And you think the mom is going to be somebody that's going to be like, yeah, it's okay. Like, yeah, you can be on TV. His mom actually says, why'd you write that down? Like, you're supposed to just write, like, be a doctor or a lawyer or something. And she says, wait till your dad get home. I'm going to tell him to. And so he just hurt. He is hurt to the fullest right now. And his dad says, just go to your room. I'll talk to you in a minute. This is where it just gets powerful for me. His dad comes into the room and says, I know what your mom is saying. I know what your teacher is saying. I don't care what they're saying. Whatever you want to be when you grow up, write it down, put it in your drawer, read it every night before you go to bed and every morning when you wake up. One day you'll be there. To this day, he's on TV 7 days a week, and he says every Christmas he sends that teacher that told him that a flat screen TV, so she never miss him on TV.
Wow. Oh, wow.
And that's powerful for me. That motivates me every day to think anything is possible, and don't let nobody tell you nothing different.
Wow. And his story gets not so much deeper, but even late, because it took him a while to get on TV.
Oh yeah, no, his story goes. It's like he didn't start he didn't make it at age 24. He was talking about late in his 30s before he started really getting into it. But yeah, no, it's just the power of perseverance and overcoming all the adversity that he had to go through. But all of that was I think God building up his story. And now he has a lot to pull from when he's encouraging others to go do the same for themselves. And so it's just all, I don't know, it's just all in God's plan in my humble opinion.
Wow.
But those are my three: David Shands, Jim Rohn, Steve Harvey.
Marlon Walls, everybody. Marlon Walls. Come on. Dang. Man, I knew before we started this episode, I knew this was going to be one of the best episodes, Marlon. No cap. No, like the kids say, no cap.
Oh, man, yeah.
Man, yeah. Wow. Man,
no, I've enjoyed it, man. This has been fun. This is actually my first time I've got to do an interview. Most time I'm the interviewer, not the interviewee. So it's been pretty cool.
Wow. Well, the fun isn't over yet. The fun isn't over yet. We got the 2-minute drill. And then for everybody, if this is your first time tuning in, the 2-minute drill is where we just have an opportunity just to ask a few rapid fire questions. and then we just see a slightly different angle of our guest. It's just for fun. Marlon, are you ready?
Yes, sir. I don't even know what's coming up next. I'm just ready. Let's get it.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go. Here we go. Favorite food?
Pizza,
What type of pizza?
pepperoni, nothing else. I mean, nothing else. If it's
Oh,
cheese,
wow.
I'm not eating it. If it's rare for me to eat something besides pepperoni pizza. I would go like to
Uh,
like mob pizza or something. I'll customize it, but it's our pepperoni all the way.
okay, okay. What's the last book you read?
Dreams are built overnight, David Shands.
How fitting. How fitting.
You're right.
What's your go-to streaming show of preference?
Streaming show. Ooh, can it be like on like a series?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Power.
Okay, okay.
It was Power, and then there's also Undercover Billionaire.
Okay, okay. Makes sense. Makes sense. What's your favorite podcast?
Money Monoplizers podcast.
As it should be. As it should be. And then last but not least, what's one tip that you want to leave for a student athlete? One tip.
Oh man, one tip for a student athlete. I would say live with no regrets. Like identify what you want in life and go after it unapologetically. And I think identify your goal after sports, because a lot of people believe that sports is the end all be all. Sports is just the beginning. Sports is the door to all the other opportunities in your life. So whether that's going to be to become the best lawyer, the best doctor, the best entrepreneur, the best investor, can be a segue for you. And just like take all the discipline that you learned as a student athlete and apply it to your everyday life. You are way ahead of the curve compared to most other people who have no level of discipline, because they're not being told by coaches, show up here at 5 a.m., show up here at 7 a.m., and just having that constant repetitive schedule of being disciplined each and every day. You have that advantage that nobody else has. Utilize it.
Ooh. And then here's a bonus question. This is an extra question. Who is one guest that you would like to see me interview next on Beyond the Ball?
We actually had somebody on by the name of Darius Butler. That was a ex NFL athlete, and he has a pretty good story too he has an NFL perspective. So I pretty liked him a lot. We had him on our podcast.
Okay. Dope. Now, Marlon, go ahead. Just take some time and let people know where they can find you, how they can connect with you, and how they can follow along in your journey.
Yep. So you can contact me personally or follow me personally at Deuce Walls. That's DEUCE WALLS. Deuce came from, I'm a junior, so that's why it's Deuce Walls. You can also follow us on our podcast page at Money Monoplizers. We post informative content on there that'll keep you engaged. So check that out and share those posts. That's our outro every episode. So I'm so used to saying it or so used to hearing it. But yeah, Money Monoplizers is money, then MONOPOLIZERS. That's on Instagram.
There it is. Marlon, man, my brother, I appreciate you coming on and blessing the podcast. We recorded the longest podcast episode on Beyond the Ball, but I'm glad because this is a good dialogue. This is a great conversation, and I appreciate you being in the building.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you for reaching out, man. I enjoyed it.
Most definitely. Marlon Walls, everybody. Marlon Walls, like they do on the talk show. But everybody, man, if you got any value at all from this episode, I would encourage you, wherever you're watching it, I would encourage you to watch it on YouTube, because you get to see our reactions and you get to see our lovely faces. But I'd encourage you to screenshot the episode and then DM it to Marlon at Deuce Walls, and then let him know like what part added value to you or what part challenged your mindset, because he challenged my mindset on the platform today as well. And then also check out his podcast, because with you all being student athletes and you all having opportunities, or you're looking for what's your next opportunity in life, the Money Monoplizers is definitely a great place for you to listen, tap in, and get your mindset challenged. So I would encourage you all to do those things. And last but not least, make sure to click right here and subscribe to the podcast right on YouTube, because you want to get the exclusive content. You definitely want to be in the know. So everybody, thank you so much for rocking with Beyond the Ball. I'm your host, Jonathan Jones, and this is Beyond the Ball, where we help you succeed beyond your degree.